Order the joint Kent and Franklin Township. It's a yearly meeting. We have to discuss the cemetery authorities and motion for a trustee for the cemetery. So at this time, where are the, oh, you can come forward. Well, we want you up here.
Oh, you gotta be up front, man.
I realize, bear with us tonight, people. The popcorn's coming. Butter. All right. I need a motion from the Franklin Township trustees. Roll call.
Mr. Amrine?
Here.
Mr. DeLeon?
Here.
Mr. Ferrara?
Here.
Mr. Kuhar? Here. Ms. Rosenberg?
Here.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish? Here. Mr. Sidoti?
Here.
Mr. Turner?
Here.
Ms. Wallach? Ms. Kapusta? Here. Mr. Russell? Here. Mr. Swan? No Swan.
Okay. First thing on the, here comes Tracy now.
Okay.
First thing on the agenda is to appoint the Franklin Township trustee for the Standing Rock Cemetery Board and Trustee. Is there a motion from the trustees?
Motion to appoint Glenn Russell as Standing Rock Cemetery representative for Franklin Township.
There's a second from council.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I need a motion to authorize the draft number 2023-024, 2023-025, and 2030-026. I'll go, Mr. Turner.
Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Would the clerk read draft number 2023-24 in title only?
Draft Joint Resolution Number 2023-024, a joint resolution of the Board of Trustees of Franklin Township and the Council of the City of Kent, Ohio, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 759.34, determining that the rate of taxes be levied upon all the taxable property of said municipality and said township for cemetery purposes for the tax year of 2023 shall be and hereby is fixed in an amount equal to .60 mils for the City of Kent and .60 mils for Franklin Township and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Ms. Kapusta?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Anybody? Please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar? Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Ms. Kapusta?
Yes.
Mr. Russell? Resolution 2023-024 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read joint draft number resolution 2023-25
Draft
with the
joint-
name inserted?
You got it. Draft Joint Resolution Number 2023-025, a joint resolution appointing Glenn Russell, a member of Franklin Township Trustees, to the Standing Rock Cemetery Board of Trustees in accordance with the provisions of the Ohio Revised Code, Section 759.36, effective January 1st, 2024, and ending December 31st, 2026, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second one, was that you, Tracy?
It was a tie.
All right. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Ms. Kapusta? Mr. Russell? Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
I think you ought to,
Abstain.
Well,
abstain.
abstain you. Okay.
good move, buddy.
Move adoption.
Second.
Good coaching there.
Second.
Second by Tracy, adoption. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance?
No.
Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar? Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Ms. Kapusta?
Yes.
Abstain?
Oh, abstain.
No, not you.
Not
I'm
you.
sorry. Mr. Russell? Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-025 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2023-26 in title only?
Draft Joint Resolution Number 2023-026, a joint resolution granting salary and hourly pay raises to the personnel of the Standing Rock Cemetery and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallet?
Yes.
Ms. Kapusta?
Yes.
Mr. Russell? Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Does anybody have any about adopting this, any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallet?
Yes.
Ms. Kapusta?
Yes.
Mr. Russell? Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-026 has passed.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the trustees for coming,
Thank you.
our once-a-year meeting with you. It's always a pleasure. With that, the joint cemetery meeting is adjourned. We're going to move on into council. Because of some of the subject matter tonight, I amended the agenda so the public don't have to sit and wait and go through all the items we're going to talk. So I need a motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Jack, Mike, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, first off, this was brought to my attention this week. Actually, Dave has brought to his attention. This week is the 54th Annual Professional Municipal Clerk Week. In 1984 and in 1994, President Reagan and Clinton respectively signed a proclamation officially declaring Professional Municipal Clerk Week the first full week of May and recognized the essential role of municipal clerks play in local government. So on behalf of myself as the mayor of Kent, the council I represent, the manager, Dave Brewer, and his staff, as well as the city staff, we want to thank our clerk, Amy Wilkins, for all you do.
Aw, thank you.
Bring donuts, everybody?
Was not expecting this, but thank you very much.
I did that all on a nickel piece of paper. All right, we're going to get into tonight's agenda, and like I said, we moved it around, especially for the people who are here. So we're going to go with land use first. Mr. Ferrer, you're chairman.
Super, thank you. All right, Land Use Committee, I'll call to order, and we've got a presentation about the detachment of land request on Johnson Road, and Bridget Susel, yes.
Yes, the Community Development Department received a petition for detachment of land.
No.
There we go. The Community Development Department received a petition for detachment of lands, and at this time, I'm going to invite Eric Cobb up to present his petition, and then after that, the administration will speak to its review of the regulations and case law associated with this item.
Super. I'll just take this second for the audience. We asked for a presentation by the city staff, then we have questions from council, then I go to questions from the audience, and then comments from council, comments from the audience. I'll probably combine questions and comments from the audience for the sake of time because there's so many people, but the questions have to be directed to council, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Kolb. I'm the new owner of a parcel of land situated here in Portage County. Currently, it's 2 parcels of land. One parcel is Franklin Township, while another parcel is in the city of Kent. So right now, I am here. I have a petition that has been written out. I think you've seen that. My attorney wrote that up in November, and we finally got to this stage of the game to get it presented to the city council. The petition is actually written out to the Portage County Commissioners. While I'm not a lawyer and I'm not presenting myself as a lawyer, I am just stating that fact that what we're really here to do is to seek assent from the City Council here of Kent on the submitted petition. Per the Ohio Revised Code 709.39, knowing that there's 3 ways to go about a detachment of land. And I do realize that a detachment from an annexation is a little bit uncommon, but yet it is in the Ohio Revised Code, and therefore I am trying to exercise my right in that. Originally, I think everyone knows that this was Lappin Farms, and it's been Lappin Farms for close to 100 years. They farmed the property around 2004, 2005. The farm was sold to a developer. At that time, the land was completely all in Franklin Township. And in fact, the the annexation of the land that I own was actually a 49-acre parcel that was probably brought to this same room or whatever room at that time. And I'm sure there were some discussions about moving that into the city of Kent, as for the reason to expand a neighborhood and provide a new residential development. I can only imagine what the neighbors would have thought when that happened. But today we're here to detach that. It is my intention to say publicly, not trying to develop this land and put several multi-structurals out there and properties and buildings and severe development. In fact, I do love this property. I love the small pond, the lake, just the fertile soil. Even as a kid growing up, I would drive up Newcomer Road and see that property tilled and just go, wow, this soil is fantastic. This farmer is growing something awesome. So it's a dream come true to be at this stage, to even be the owner of that property. But getting back to the matter at hand, so the annexation was allowed at that point of the 49 acres, and off of those 49 acres, fast forward to 2023, at least 10 or more of those acres has now been turned into residential properties in the city of Kent. There's nice homes there, beautiful homes, beautiful properties, including my father's house, who bought was right where one of the greenhouses was. So my parents, Larry and Valerie Kolb, are here, as long as my brother Jason Kolb. They are also property owners and conjoiners with this parcel. So what I have is roughly 39 acres with maybe 38 of those acres in this detachment process. So just let me collect myself, as I'm not really a public speaker, and I do appreciate this opportunity. Like I said, I do love this property and the tranquility of the property. I don't want to change anything majorly. I don't want to build any big structures. I don't want to obstruct anybody's view. I don't want to flood anybody's property. In fact, I don't know how they could. This is a low-lying floodplain. I have enjoyed over the last year and a half, though, trying to reclaim this property to its agricultural use as it had really been intended for the last 100 years. It has been a slow process. As I've started to mow and cut down thistles and clear some underbrush from around a pond, cut down some old trees, I realize there's a lot of work to do. So the question is, that we're all asking is, why Franklin Township? Why not stay in Kent? So I guess number one, my first thought is, I added up my property borders of all the borders that I do have, because the way it zigzags around, I have well over 6,000 feet of property borders. That means I have over 6,000 feet of neighbors. While I realize I cannot keep each and every person completely happy with me, it is not my intention to do something that they don't like or that, but in that realm, you can imagine it'd be hard to keep everybody happy, but over 4,100 feet of that 6,000 plus already borders Franklin Township. So at a public auction in June of 2021, the auctioneer announced that the vacant farmland of roughly 39 acres was in Franklin Township, and the farmhouse, the old Lappin farmhouse, which is still occupied by a Lappin, was City of Kent. I took it at that, raised my card, bought the property. There was, the auctioneer was not completely truth-coming in that. I obviously came to realize that one of the parcels was in the City of Kent. Okay, so I am here to say that, my frontage is already along Franklin Township. The frontage along Johnson Road is Franklin Township, and that I would like all of my property to be in one jurisdictional zone, Franklin Township. Another reason, because the property was originally turned into the R2 in the city of Kent, was because they wanted to get city sewers, city water into that parcel. At this point, there is a blockage of that, but I'll get into that in just a second. So I really can't even access the city water and those city utilities, nor does City of Kent provide any snow plowing services or road maintenance for my frontage on Johnson Road. Well, I guess while I'm on that topic, if you're near Stowe High School and you come north on Johnson Road from Fairchild, as you're heading towards Johnson, your very first street to make a right, those last 4 homes that were part of Lappin Farm way back, the first 4 that he sold back when he was still farming it, those are Franklin Township and remain Franklin Township. As you make a right turn onto Johnson Road, the very first sign you see is "Welcome to Franklin Township." You're entering Franklin Township. Then the very next driveway is a gravel driveway going right into my property. So it kind of says, "Welcome to Franklin Township." I drive through Franklin Township, now I enter Kent. I'm just asking for my property to be contiguously all in Franklin Township. So moving on. So we buy this property, we realize that. My wife is here today with me, her name is Carol. Carol and I decided we'll just stop into one of the Kent City offices and ask them about this. You know, we have no idea, we didn't come with a lawyer, I didn't come knowing anybody in that room. So the first person we were met with, very friendly person, was Bridget. So, thank you. So we talked to Bridget and we said, hey, we're the new owners of the remnants of Lappin Farm. We have this acreage, it's down there, and we just have this crazy idea, what does the city think of that? A new neighbor now took a 4-acre parcel and built a nice large home there in the process of building it. We don't think we could ever expand that road and make it go through there and put cul-de-sacs and all this and that. What do you think the city of Kent would think if we were like, to maybe request to go back to Franklin Township, as it had been for 100 years? And after a little discussion, she actually pointed out to us that we are really landlocked there. We can't get to those utilities. Kent is not necessarily providing us with the snow plowing and those kind of services, and we have the frontage there. We can't really turn into our property off of a normally maintained road that's in the city of Kent. She said, you're really landlocked. I don't see why the city would oppose this. If you go through the proper method of doing this, I don't see why the city would have a problem with this. We talked about what the proper method was, and she said, I'm not a lawyer. You might want to go talk to one. So we did. We talked to Chad Murdoch. So he helped us discover a method to do this, and that was through the Ohio Revised Code 709.38. So I've been in the office several times and on more than one occasion. Bridget and her office, they said, the city would not be opposed to this detachment. So that's what brings us in here today. That's why we're here. So I've addressed the city council, and I appreciate that time, and I do know I have a lot of neighbors here. I did do some door-to-door kind of trying to meet some neighbors and things, so if it's okay, I'd like to just take my last, well, it's only maybe a minute or two, and just address some of the neighbors that are either even in Franklin Township or in the city of Kent in the neighborhood. So I know I didn't get to everybody. I didn't get to everybody's door, and of course I couldn't. I knew this would be my place to say something to my neighbors. And by the way, if we would have had this kind of turnout at the auction, I don't think I would have been the high bidder. But anyway, I do really want to appreciate, I came in and talked to Jim. He's one of the neighbors that we have bought the small pond together. He expressed a lot of concerns. He invited me in. I enjoyed our conversation. It was fantastic. I heard a lot of concerns, things that I didn't necessarily know were rumors going out there. So I'm here to just be completely honest, and if there's a Bible here, I will put my hand on it, and I want to tell the truth, because I am not here to lie and to create some type of crazy ideas of what's going on here, but as I talked to some neighbors and other people, I had heard words like ski park. I had heard words like grandstand. I had heard words like multiple boats, jet ski racing, SeaWorld-like shows going on. And that is not who I am and what this property is intended for or what I want. I want to get this back into an agricultural use Does that mean a tractor could be down there early in the morning once in a while, trying to mow hay, plow these fields up? Yeah. I am sorry if it's loud and it blows back black smoke every once in a while. That is not my intention, is not to take my 6,000 feet of neighbors and get everyone mad at me. That's just not why I'm here. But I thought, while I have you here, I can at least say, I do love the tranquility of that lake. I go sit down by there, and it is awesome. And we all get to share that. There's 10 houses that get to look at that all day, every day. I don't want to disturb that. I don't want to create something that upsets everybody in the city of Kent, in Franklin Township, in Portage County. Even if you're in Summit County, you can see over. I don't know. That is not what I want to do. But what I do want to do is get it back. I want to get it plowed. I want to turn it back into a farm a little bit. My family lives there. What I do, they have to live with, too, because they're there. They see it. They hear it. I am sorry for the smoke one day. I admit that happened. Okay, I don't know how I could change that, no matter what jurisdiction this is. There was a fire, got some smoky. I am sorry. You are my neighbors. But I just really want to clear up that false information that has been going around. I don't know who was responsible for spreading it, and it spread like wildfire, because everybody I talked to kind of brought it up, and I'm like, whoa, I can't go to every door, and it does get exhausting. And I did enjoy talking to the neighbors that I've met so far. I talked to Pat on the phone today a little bit. It was a great conversation. She said there's concerns, and I can understand those concerns, especially if somebody's going to put on a SeaWorld show in their backyard. Not the case. So just to recap, my petition is to the Portage County Commissioners, but today is one stop on that journey. I am asking for the assent of the City Council to assign a resolution number moving forward with this. Thank you very much. Eric Cole.
Thank you. I'm going to let Bridget do the city's presentation before we
okay.
open it up for questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to present, but then I also want to clarify some of the statements but I'd like to present first.
Go right ahead.
So the Community Development Department did receive a petition for detachment of lands from Attorney Chad Murdoch on behalf of Mr. Cobb. It deals with 2 parcels that are located within the Forest Lake subdivision. Those parcels were first platted in 1999 as part of the Forest Lake subdivision Phase 4 and were annexed into the city in 2005. The Community Development Department defines subdivision and the term plat under its Chapter 1179 of its subdivision regulations. So currently those are considered platted subdivision lands, not unplatted. Chapter 709 of the Ohio Revised Code governs the detachment of lands. And here's where I'm going to interject one response. I had never heard of detachment of lands. When Mr. Cobb came first in, I said to him exactly what he said. It is landlocked. It's because the cul-de-sac where Windward Way would have ended in what would have been a cul-de-sac, a subdivision variance was granted by the Planning Commission about 3 years ago to allow for a drive to a single-family parcel that was sold basically in the northwest quadrant, not quite on Newcomer, but behind it. So in order for him to have access, we abandoned the cul-de-sac through a variance request of the Planning Commission. So when we say landlocked, we are talking landlocked under the governing guidelines of the subdivision regulations of the city. That being said, I had advised him that the only way that I knew to detach, or to do, I didn't use the word detach actually, I said was an annexation. I said we had just done an annexation for the Davie parcel, and that was driven by the applicant, and him as an applicant, the city would move forward that process without objection as we had done for Davie. So I did want to clarify, I did not say detachment of lands. In fact, it wasn't until the petition came that I called Eric, our assistant law director, spoke to Hope, our law director, and our city manager, and the 4 of us must have a good 80 years of government service, and none of us had heard of detachment of lands. So I just want to clarify. I know a lot now, though. So. So under the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 709, 709.38 is exactly what the petitioner is speaking to. So the county commissioners need to sign off on a detachment to move it to an adjacent township. However, that can only be done with the assent of the municipality. If, however, the municipality does not consent to the detachment of lands, Chapter 709.41 and 709.42 take effect, and those go through the Court of Common Pleas. I'm going to have Eric step up on this because this is mostly his homework, but basically there are 4 requirements. There is not a lot of case law on this. Eric has one case, I think, that covers, I think there were 7 instances, and one covers like 3 of the same parcel. So as you can see, and this dates back to pre-1953. So there aren't a lot, which made us feel better, which is why we didn't know about the detachment process. But the 4 criteria are: the parcel must be farmland that was not within the original corporation limits of the city. The second court rule that they looked at, or procedure they looked at, was the parcels are in or will remain within the city, and the landowner are taxed or will continue to be taxed for municipal purposes in substantial excess of the benefits conferred onto them by reason of being in the city. The third one is the parcels may be detached without materially affecting the best interests or good government of the city. And the fourth and final is 5 years must have elapsed since the parcels were annexed into the city. The assistant law director and I went through them, and in agreement, the parcels included in the petition request were not within the original City of Kent Corporation. That condition has been met. The second condition that was met was the parcels were annexed into the City of Kent in 2005, which is 17 years prior to the receipt of the petition, so the condition 4 was met. The Law Department and Community Development Department would dispute whether the second condition has been met because the real property taxes due, as reported by the Portage County Auditor, are de minimis. I will tell you that in the court cases, and Eric can speak to this, it was one of the biggest ones was in the City of Dublin, and it was dealt with annexation for the purpose of extension of utilities. So as you know, assessments are assigned when we expand and extend our utilities. That is not the case. There is not an assessment for utility extension on this because it truly is landlocked now that that road has been terminated. In addition, it is in a floodplain. So that would, I'll let Jim take that about building utilities in a floodplain. At this point, in terms of the administration, the Law Department and the Community Development Department, the third condition is the one that the city is expecting council to consider and review, and that's determining if the petition for detachment of land materially affects the best interest or good government of the City of Kent. The pre-1953 detachment statutes do require the court to consider not only the best interests of the applicant, but of the community at large. At this point, I will turn it over to Eric and see if he has anything he wants to add to what it is, and then we can take questions.
So usually when Bridget talks, there's not a lot to say afterwards, so I'm glad that she let me go second. It's important to understand that the 4 factors are laid out by the courts that they are obligated to consider. That does not mean that the city council is obligated to follow those same 4 factors, but it's important for you to know that's what the court's going to be looking at depending on what happens next. And so part of why we're glad this is being in front of the city council is in order to look at the issue of what is good governance, what is good for the community, is to have a public hearing so that should this case wind up in front of the Court of Common Pleas, we will have a record of what the public thought, what the government thought, so we'll be able to demonstrate that point. I think the other points are fairly straightforward. I mean, again, there's no question the property was annexed into the city. There's no question that it's been more than 5 years. The other thing that will be an issue, should we get to the Court of Common Pleas, and again, I don't know that we'll get there, but if we do get there, is determining whether or not this is considered platted land. Because if the land is platted, all this falls away anyways, as then it doesn't meet the required elements. What's important to understand is that's a legal term. That's not for the council to decide. That's something the Court of Common Pleas will be deciding for us.
The Ohio Revised Code does state unplatted lands. That's why I clarified our 1179 chapter, which defines plat for the city itself.
Is that it? Ms. Schaefer-Bish, you had a question?
Yeah. I guess I've been reading and listening and really trying to understand what the hardship is. Number one, and I have a second question that follows up. What happens if the person who owns it and it gets detached and then they sell it to somebody else?
Well, I'll speak to the first one. Hardship is not a determinant in a detachment of lands petition. So if there's the assent of the jurisdiction, then it goes forward to the county commissioners. However, if that is not granted, it would go, as Eric said, to the Court of Common Pleas, and case law shows that those 4 conditions that I spoke to and Eric spoke to will be the variables they will consider. If, however, the detachment occurs, and I'm just putting that out there, so what would happen based on the statute is those parcels would then become under Franklin Township. They would be within their jurisdiction. The zoning then that is in effect for the adjacent area would become the zoning for that, because spot zoning wouldn't allow it to be anything but. The abutting zoning for Franklin Township is rural residential, and I did spend some time looking into that. It allows for basically single-family residential with specifications with regards to parcel size, and it allows passive recreational, and they define passive as non-motorized recreational. Now, Mr. Cobb had mentioned about farming the land. He can seek an agricultural designation that would allow for the use of tractors, but that would not allow for the use under the zoning requirements of the township for the use of motorized, ATVs and boats. That's all in there. In addition to that, I will say that currently it is in the city. It's under our Chapter 1337 of the floodplain, because that is floodplain. So any activity that's occurring, even clearing a brush, he should secure a permit for such activities from Bob Nitchie, our chief building official, who is the city's floodplain administrator. If, however, it gets moved into the township, the counties, I think it's their chief building official is your floodplain manager. So it would probably be Randy? Yeah, it'd be Randy. So then anything that would be proposed there, they would need to get permitted through that. Because it is a FEMA designated floodplain. The majority of that area, not just the lake, but the parcel itself, is in a high-risk floodplain zone. So permits are needed for any activity that occurs on the site.
Is agricultural a permitted use in the
Under
city of Kent?
It is zoned R2, which is medium-density residential zoning district. We allow for some open space activities, but it is different, a little different than what, actually ours does not restrict to passive agricultural, so passive recreational. So actually that doesn't prohibit that use. However, depending on the nature and the extent of that use on that site, it could be in violation of a floodplain requirement depending on what happens on that area.
Thank
You
you.
got a follow-up question? No? Mr. Turner?
Yeah. Bridget, what is the impact to residents that actually abut the property in the city of Kent?
Well, that's not a determination the administration can make. That's why the petition is here. Council would need to be considering that. I will say I made a large map because I know that sometimes council has difficulty with those small parcel maps I give you. Sometimes people are looking at them upside down. So these are the 2 parcels in question right here. These are the 2 that are being requested to be attached. We did them in black so you can see it very easily. So this right here is Windward Lane. So these are the properties that basically directly abut. And 6 of those properties actually have their parcel lines that extend into the lake. So they have ownership into the lake. So the detachment would include the upper part, but then their part, of course, you cannot take the lake apart. So that is, it is, I will say, it is challenging in that the detachment would move this portion of the lake, if it were to go forward into the township, but yet the ownership of the lower part of the lake still falls within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city of Kent, which can make things a little challenging. I will tell you, too, there are private deed restrictions that are recorded. However, the deed restrictions, I read through them, they are from the former owner of the parcels in question, putting limits on the parcel owners here. It doesn't go the other way.
Oh.
They should have probably had a better lawyer look at that.
Further, Mr. Turner?
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Further, Mr. Sidoti?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Bridget. I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question. If it goes back to Franklin Township, is that still part of the Kent City Schools taxing authority?
I would have to look at the map, but yes. I mean,
I would assume
everything
so.
on Johnson Road is, so
Yeah,
I
I
can't
assume so.
imagine. Absolutely, I would
Okay.
imagine. And actually, the tax, if you look at the millage charts,
Right.
it's de minimis differential between the township and the city with regards to whether or not, because as you know, the majority of the
that was
millage
my
goes to both.
That was
Right.
my second question.
Exactly.
You know, if the taxes are even, it doesn't seem to.
It goes to the school.
When it was originally platted, can I continue?
Yes. yeah.
Okay.
As
When it
long
was
as there's a
ori-
question.
Yeah, there will be. When it was originally platted, that's an inside thing. Was the whole area platted? When it was
yes.
registered with the,
Yes, so basically, Phase 4
Mhm.
of Forest Lake subdivision in 1999 included all of that, and then the annexation also included it. Now, I will say the subdivision, this portion never came to fruition
Right.
because of the floodplain. Building in a floodplain is extremely challenging. Not only is the insurance requirements onerous for a structure, you are dealing with a very wet area. I mean, very wet. So even supporting a road there is challenging. That's why the parcel that was sold over here, where the variance was granted to give that private drive for it, he actually loops along, and it is literally the raised area where he knows the driveway will actually not flood and be washed away. So it is primarily a floodplain area. But this was part of that platted area, because when a developer comes in, they come in with a conceptual plan of how they want to lay out the subdivision, and they basically get it all. We have what we call paper streets. There's subdivisions, Ravenna has a bunch, a lot of communities do, where a subdivision is laid out, it's approved through a planning commission process, authorized by council, but it's never built. So then you've got paper streets. So I'm not going to say this is a paper street, but it has been designated as the subdivision since 1999 and annexed into the city since 2005, with individual parcels being sold off.
so the original platting, it just wasn't able to, that was the intent.
Correct.
All right, so the intent changed only because they weren't able to do it legally? Well, because of the floodplain.
I would say floodplain, but I also think that there was some, there's costs associated with building the subdivision.
Right.
The developer is responsible for basically making sure all the utilities, roads, sewer, water are all done to the community standards. Then they have to be dedicated. Heavy insurance and bond requirements. So it may have gotten to where, while this was conceptually the plan, the money wasn't there to support it, and then when it became clear about the floodplain situation, it went away. This predates my time. I just came into it basically 3 years after it was annexed into the city.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so if we turn that down and say we don't see that there's a reason for not allowing this to continue to be part of the city, can they petition the commissioners to petition the city of Kent to come in and annex that portion of land?
An annexation can go forward procedurally
Right.
through due process.
Yeah, through
Yes.
the commissioners.
As any other prior developer or business has done in the past.
So when a particular organization comes to us and asks us to consider annexing land that is currently in Franklin Township, they come to us, and then we...
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So really, why are we here? Why don't they just go directly to the Portage County Commissioners and to the Franklin Township trustees and ask them to petition for annexation?
Because it's in our jurisdiction. So basically, the township doesn't need to do an annexation necessarily. The detachment of lands procedure is what's part of that. I said annexation right out of the gate. That's what I thought as well.
Logically.
But then when we looked into this, the detachment is there. Again, it requires the assent, though, so they can't just go directly to the township. The municipality within which that land is located needs to grant its assent to basically for it to be detached.
So in other words, it's kind of a reverse, that they have to get our consent first before they can petition to...
Before the commissioners can consider, under the Ohio Revised Code, the commissioners need our assent in order to allow the detachment for it to go to the township.
Okay, thank you.
Further from council, Mr. Kuhar.
Yeah, Bridget? Bridget?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're sidebarring. We're thinking we're at planning commission, and we're sidebarring.
Is it true that a good portion of that parcel is muck?
Well, I wouldn't call it muck, but yes. I mean, I thought somebody might want to see that, so I did print out the map. So if you look, and this map is basically based on the firm maps, which are issued by FEMA, the flood insurance rate map. So here is the map, and I don't have a large, but I can pass it around. So these are the parcels in question. This is Johnson Road. These are the parcels in question. That A and that hashed mark red are floodplain.
I have a little knowledge of that area, and we had looked at it one time, but the building was so horrific, it just turned you away from it. So I guess my question is, if this remains in the city of Kent, there's probably little or no chance that the city will provide any improvements to any of that property. Is that correct?
I mean, I can't speculate, but it is, I can't anticipate that that would be the case. If somebody were to build, like, for example, the parcel that is just basically to that southwest, the one I mentioned, that they got the variance for that drive, you know, it's their responsibility to connect to the city's lines, right? That cost is on them. So it would be like that with any private owner. If somebody's going to try to put a house there, they have to go through, get the permitting. This would also require review by whatever floodplain administrator's jurisdiction it fell under, and then they would have to extend the laterals to connect to the main.
Now, how about fire protection, fire lines?
They already have it, Franklin Township contract.
I didn't hear that.
The mayor said that the township and the city are already, are you talking specifically about like hydrants?
Yes.
I mean, that would be something that would be gone through technical plan review on where those would be placed based on where the house is and stuff. But there are hydrants obviously on Windward, and they are on Newcomer as well. So, and on Sunset. So as a reminder, on Newcomer is City of Kent at the center line, and then the other side is Stowe. So, and then actually at the top of Newcomer, some of the ones at the Johnson and Newcomer in the northwest corner are actually in the township. So it's kind of, you have to really look at it in terms of where that falls.
I guess what I'm trying to determine is with the condition of the soil and the land and the available services, is it of a value for a development or is it a better value of a agricultural private use?
I can only speak to what we require for a subdivision regulation, and at the time that this was platted, it met that. Which means there was proposed utility lines. We won't approve a subdivision without some plan of how they would connect.
Further from council? Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yeah, I just want to say that. So what was the assumption under that, and I know you weren't here, but was that to drain the wetlands so that it could be productive?
I wasn't here.
Okay.
I cannot speak to what my predecessors did, nor what planning commissions did back at that time. Sorry.
Thank you.
Nothing further from council. I'm going to go to the audience. I'm going to ask that the questions or comments be directed to council. I don't want to get this into, I know Mr. Kolb is here, and thank you for coming, but questions have to be directed to council, and I don't want to get questions directed at him at this time. The questions come to council and comments also. So at this time, if you would raise your hand and come to the microphone, state your name and address, please. And I'm going to try to keep it 3 minutes. I want to give you all the time, but for this 3 minutes. So, thank you.
Before I get started.
We got one. Ladies first.
Sorry.
That's right.
Renee Rahutsky, 237 Highland Avenue. I'm president of the Kent Environmental Council. You should all have a letter from the Kent Environmental Council, but I do want to say, looking at the maps, the floodplain isn't like you drain it, it goes away. The floodplain is there to absorb water. So if someone were to tile this land and drain it for farmland, there's likely going to be some impacts on the adjoining properties and flooding and that sort of thing. So that's something else to consider that wasn't in my letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
My name is Jim Stadelman, and I live at 1157 Windward Lane, which is immediately adjacent to the property. There are several people from Forest Lakes Development that would like to speak tonight. And in an effort to make sure that we don't all come up and say the same thing or there's a lot of duplication, what we did is we got together and we kind of divvied up the topics, the concerns. And what we did was, in an effort to help with documenting it for future reference, we put together a little packet of information. And with your permission, I'd like to give it to the council because there are some attachments that show maps and pictures as we go along. And someone might want to take a look at it.
Sure,
as
you can
we're
give
going
it to
along.
the clerk. We'll be
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. By the way, happy day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, thank you.
Just to give you a little overview of how this is set up, at the beginning of the packet, there will be a series of people that are identified and what they're going to be talking about, and this is what they're going to be saying, basically. And then as we go along, we may say, please refer to the Jim Stadelman attachments, and there's a section right after that group, that first 9 pages are what we're all going to be saying. And then the attachments are listed by person, so that as the person is speaking, if they say, please look at my picture number 3 or 5 or whatever it is, you'll be able to go to that section. We're going to do it in order if that's okay. And that way it'll hopefully keep it a little bit more organized.
Thank you.
If that is okay. So I'm going to start off. My name is Jim Stadelman. As I said, I'm a resident of Kent, and I live at 1157 Windward Lane, which is in the Forest Lakes development. For those who are not familiar or would like a refresher on where that is, it's in the northwest corner of Kent. And if you would go to just past page 9, the first drawing there is a little map that shows where our development is and the adjacent property, the one that's in question. My property is adjacent to the land being petitioned to be detached from the city of Kent. And if you go to the next drawing, drawing number 2, it shows you an aerial view of the area of our properties with overlaid on the aerial view which shows the lake and what we call the boggy area. There's a very marshy area. If you look at the soil report, it says it's muck, but we'll call it boggy for our purposes. Our home, and many of those in Forest Lakes, are unique in that the front of the homes look like you're in a very nice residential neighborhood, but the back looks like we live in the country. So if you would turn to the next page, which shows pictures 1 and 2, the one picture shows what it looks like if you were in the front of the house, and the other picture looks like what's in the back. So just so you have a better understanding, as people talk about their properties, you'll kind of know what's going on. Our development is zoned R2, medium residential density, and if you turn to page 3, or drawing 3, there's a little map of that, and it shows the R classifications of the surrounding areas as well. And finally, the Franklin Township zoning map, adjacent to the properties being petitioned to be detached, is shown on drawing 4. So if you want to see what's over on the Franklin Township side, that's what's going on there. Okay, the property petitioning to be detached was originally in Franklin Township, but 17 years ago, in 2005, it was petitioned to be annexed to the city of Kent. At that time, it was requested that it be zoned R2, and the city of Kent complied. As such, its present zoning classification is R2. Recently, our new neighbor purchased the land immediately north and northwest of our property, and has petitioned that the property be detached from the city of Kent and be reincorporated into Franklin Township. It's our understanding under Revised Code 709, it provides various means of adjusting the boundaries of annexation or detachment of adjoining municipal corporations. And one method says that the boundaries may be changed by mutual consent of the adjoining entities. And if there is mutual consent, then the mutual assent is identified in the form of an ordinance from the city from each municipality agreeing to the change in the boundary lines of the two additions. Okay? A public hearing is then called to discuss the matter, which is where we're at tonight, and as such, the neighbors of the land adjacent to the land thank council for letting us know that the issue is being discussed, and then we have requested that we be allowed to provide input to the council to address some of our concerns. And so, concern number one is a lack of major information regarding proposed use development of the land. Up until tonight, we've not really had someone really tell us what they wanted to do. And we, what we'd like to do is know what specific type of development is planned for the area if it's transferred, and what will the zoning be, and how will the city of Kent be compensated for the loss of the tax revenue? Will the taxes of the rest of us in Kent be affected by the loss of this revenue? Should the land be transferred to Franklin Township, who will be providing oversight to protect the interests of the Kent neighbors for the following items? Traffic road modifications in the area, if there's something going on with the transfer, the impact on the safety services. How will the governmental oversight be addressed for new construction and site development? Will utility modifications be required for any reason? And how will the environment/wetlands and potential sound levels be affected? Without this information, we're asking how can council make an educated assessment of the impact on the community if the transfer should occur? And I guess what we're hoping is that you'll go back to the departments that are involved and they can provide the answers to some of these questions. So the next person that's going to be speaking will be Roger Miles, if that is okay with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Roger Miles. I live at 1169 Woodward Lane. My property does abut the property in question. Bridget Sussel gave us the documents that she gave to you. And upon reading them, the one thing that stood out to me was that any decision must include the best interests of the city and the best interests of its residents. So, the question is, what are these best interests? And the one thing that really stood out to me was by keeping the land in Kent, that affords to me and to my neighbors the entire Forest Lakes development and to the city the protections and the oversights that come with having to abide by local ordinances and obtaining approvals from local committees. These ordinances keep me from infringing upon my neighbors' rights and keep my neighbors from infringing upon mine. They are, in a sense, our own little constitution. Mr. Kolb owns the land. Let him do with it as he pleases. However, the old saying goes, your rights end where mine begin. Keep the land in the city and let him petition for zoning changes. Let him submit plans to community development. I have good faith that these committees will do their due diligence and make decisions that are in Kent's best interests, whether we agree with them or not. We are not asking for anything more than what we already have and what every resident of Kent has. What we have now is you, the council, looking out for us, looking out for our best interests, making informed decisions on our behalf. By allowing the land to go to Franklin Township, you are giving away your ability to make these decisions. You are giving away our protections. You are giving away our oversights. You are giving away our little piece of our little constitution. And I have two real quick examples of oversight. So I do have some pictures. I took these off the back of my deck. The first two, it's not a panoramic, but they kind of go like this. And every time it rains, and this is not a 100-year rain or a 50-year rain, but every time it rains, and anybody here will tell you that this is true, a river forms along our properties. The pictures that I took were taken after it rained for about an hour. The river is formed by water draining off the western portion of the land. It flows along, I call it the levee. I don't know if it was really meant to be a levee, but there's like a raised portion. The river follows this levee behind all of our properties. It goes back into Mr. Kolb's property and into a culvert that then drains into Fish Creek. And any attempt to extend or modify the existing lake, one wrong scoop of a backhoe could make this lake permanent. It is, in some places, 8 to 10 feet wide, about ankle deep, and we all have grass that we have to maintain on the other side of this river, and I'm not about to try driving my John Deere through it. The other pictures, the one kind of gives you a sense of how big this river can be. The other picture shows the culvert that it drains into. And so the second example of an oversight is if this culvert is disturbed in any way, then what's going to happen to all the water? It's not going to be flowing into Fish Creek anymore. It's going to back up onto all of our land. And so, that's why I'm asking you to keep the land in Kent so you guys can keep protecting us. Thanks. Laura.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lori Klein. My address is 1145 Windward Lane, and our property is also adjacent to the land that is being petitioned. Our concern number 3 is potential safety issues. If the property is transferred to Franklin Township, some of the safety issues for the community area are also transferred. Have the safety departments in the City of Kent and Portage County Services agencies been involved in these discussions? Kent has its own police force with a very good response time. Franklin Township uses county sheriff for police protection. Can the county sheriff department provide the same response times? Will the increase in the territory that the sheriff needs to protect, about 40 acres, impact the number of deputies required to properly protect that additional property, especially after it has future development? Or will they need to add some deputies? Has the sheriff deputies been contacted to discuss this? Has the Kent Chief of Police been contacted to address potential reduction in safety forces due to the reduction of tax revenues? Thank you. And now Jan and Paul Sampson will give our concern number 4.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Janice Sampson. I live at 1126 Windward Lane. I am not directly abutting the property. I'm across the street, so I do get to see the beautiful view every morning. And the environment is my concern. I've lived in Kent for 40 years. I've seen City Council act on behalf of its constituents for the good of the community, and I'm here to ask that they do so now to please retain the land into this parcel within the City of Kent. I recently reviewed the City of Kent's mission statement and their sustainability plan for the future. And as stated among its goals, we should aspire to protect presently used and potentially usable aquifers and other water sources, and to protect them from those sources from degradation. Also want to enhance the city's, a goal is to enhance the city's riverbanks, streams, and natural areas, and also to discourage inappropriate developments of farmlands, woodlands, and critical natural areas. As Renee said, she sent a letter from the Kent Environmental Council indicating that these parcels of land under discussion are on a wetland corridor. These wetlands sustain egrets, herons, eagles, and other bird and animal life both on the shores and in the water. They stand as one of the few remaining large undeveloped pieces of land within the city, and retaining this environmentally important wetland within the city contributes to the city's stated mission of responsibly advancing our quality of life. And I don't believe that just means our little neighborhood, our little street. I've seen how well the Cooper Ryder Reserve has added to the quality of life of Kent as well. These wetlands are also under the aegis of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA. They're in a floodplain, which of course obviously involves FEMA oversight. And since Kent depends on groundwater as its primary source for residential and commercial purposes, it's to the city's advantage to retain as much control as possible over the wetlands within its boundaries. As such, the Kent Environmental Council recommended that these parcels be retained within the city of Kent and keep them subject to Kent zoning ordinances rather than detaching them and relinquishing that control to Franklin Township. If this detachment is permitted, any further development of the land may require additional wells for water and possible septic systems and handling of sewage, and my concern personally would be contamination of the existing lake and wetlands, as well as maintenance of the lake levels and potential flooding, as Roger had alluded to. In summary, I feel that if this detachment is approved, council cedes their ability to have input on any potential development of this land, and we risk losing an environmentally important wetland. Therefore, I urge you to vote against this detachment request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Gilmore, and I live at 505 Irma Street in Kent. Also, as with many of you, a resident of the Cuyahoga River watershed. In my professional life, I'm an ecologist with the Nature Conservancy, where I work on restoration and conservation projects in the watershed. I'm here tonight to discuss the environmental implications of the detachment and to provide a little bit of context for the parcel and the existing wetlands on site. So there's about 17 acres of wetland, which remain consistently wet throughout the year, often with standing water. The underlying soils are mapped by the Natural Resource Conservation Service as Carlisle muck, which is a soil type of marshes and is 100% hydric, which also infers a strong groundwater connection. This wetland was likely formed by glacial activity similar to the many marshes and bogs and fens that Portage County is known for. Despite the agricultural legacy, the site still tries to be a wetland. I've ridden my bike past here for about 8 years on my way to work and noticed that it just continues to remain wet. So I think it is an important wetland on Fish Creek, which is a tributary to the Cuyahoga River. Fish Creek itself is in various states of degradation. Immediately adjacent to the site, the stream is channelized and levied, which lowers the water table, increases erosion, and causes increases in flooding during, particularly during heavy precipitation events. When a stream is channelized, it basically acts as a chute to funnel water downstream faster than a naturally meandering stream, which would have connection to its floodplain. So by further impacting this wetland, you could anticipate to see increased flooding, sedimentation, and erosion in Fish Creek as well as the Cuyahoga River. The 2012 Middle Cuyahoga River Watershed Action Plan indicates that only about 7% of Fish Creek is intact, and nearly 2/3 of the creek is channelized or altered in some way. This also includes the majority of wetlands in the watershed have been altered over the past due to human development and agriculture, and so, in my opinion, it is our responsibility to stop or reverse degradation for the benefit of our future generations. In making this decision, I urge Council to consider the landscape context of this parcel because of the ecological function that the area is currently serving as a filter for stormwater, holding water on the landscape during increased storm events, and to reduce flooding downstream, including in the cities of Kent and Stowe. Upstream of the site, outside of the city limits, there has been increased development and growth in terms of housing developments, and as we see agricultural land converted to housing developments, wetlands such as these will be important for stormwater control and preventing flooding. Specifically, I'd like to urge you to consider this in light of climate change as we look at increased precipitation events, and how this will affect the city itself, but also the watershed as a whole. But within the city limits, I see that the city would retain the voting power to approve what is done with the property, including zoning and land use changes. I'm glad to hear that it won't become a water park, but this site does want to become a wetland or revert back to one. I would also urge the landowner and family that's here today to look into wetland regulations that would guard Over the development of the site, dredging or filling, currently mitigation ratios within the Cuyahoga River watershed, even at the lowest ratio of 1:1, are really expensive. And if all 17 acres were converted, you'd be looking at a mitigation cost of $1.4 million. This is just based on my past experience as a permitter in the wetland and environmental industry, just something to keep in consideration. I'm hopeful that the council agrees retaining this parcel will provide the city with necessary oversight of this property and that the land use would be changed in a responsible way. I'm happy to talk to anyone about wetland restoration. There's a lot of funding out there right now for that type of work. And in general, I appreciate your time, and I hope that this information is useful. I hope that you consider the future of our citizens and also the environmental impacts that this might have. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Fisher, and I live at 1163 Windward Lane, which also abuts the property we're talking about here. I'll keep mine really quick here, but my property, one aspect that Jim and the others have researched is just the property tax considerations or implications. In your packet, there's the rates of taxation on there. I won't read through all of that, but basically, if it goes into Franklin Township, the property taxes that he is paying would actually increase. So we don't quite understand why he would want to increase his taxes. And then we are also questioning what this does for the city of Kent in losing those taxes. So, thank you.
Thank you. Got to be quick. You got to be quick, Pat.
I'm working on it, okay? I've set my timer to it before.
No, I meant you got to be quick to get to the microphone.
Oh, Mike, okay.
Quick dog gets all the meat. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm Pat Oster, and I live at 1259 Windward Lane. So I am in the Forest Lakes development as well. I'll be referencing Kent City codes in my presentation, which you will find included in the packets of attachments. Zoning Code 1103.10R2, Medium Density Residential District, which is zoning code for petitioned land, states. This district is established to encourage single-family residential development at medium densities in areas of existing development of such density, and thereby providing a more orderly and efficient extension of public facilities. There are conditional permissions granted within the R2 code, which includes recreation facilities, outdoor, section 1105.49. The conditions do not indicate private recreation. What would be conditionally permitted under this zoning, and would it permit motorized watercraft? Why do I ask about watercraft? The property owner has used his gas-powered water ski boat on the lake in the past. Is excavating or enlarging the lake permitted? Is excavating considered mining? What permits, if any, are required? Is excavating a lake permitted? I ask these questions due to the property owner having done some work against the shoreline and removing trees and brush in the past. Noise levels, Kent City Code 50912B8 in part states, no person shall maintain or operate an apparatus as to make an unnecessary noise to the annoyance, discomfort of the city of Kent, or the people within the city, excuse me. It is not unusual for watercraft to reach 90 to 115 decibels, which are in excess and can cause irreparable harm if extended periods of time take place. Franklin Zoning Code RR for this land area is defined in an attachment to their code and refers to protecting the township's rural character, open space areas, water quality, environmentally sensitive lands, and wildlife habitats. Please consider the questions I've asked, and I will end by asking, why would the city of Kent be open to transferring land to another entity that is currently under your ability to govern and protect its residents and natural resources? What benefit would it be to the city of Kent? And what benefit or hindrance would it be and create for those of us who live nearby? And I thank you for letting me speak.
Hi, my name is Mark Calcaterra, and I live at 1133 Windward Lane in Kent. My property is adjacent to the land that the owner is requesting detachment. My goal today is to provide kind of a summary of all the speakers that you just heard from. We in the Forest Lakes Development have been pleased with the oversight of the City of Kent in providing the protection of life and property through their protection services, building and site permitting, mining permitting, oil and gas permitting, and other oversights of development, protecting all the citizens within its governance. Having the land contiguous to our property remaining in the City of Kent provides a safety net to help ensure that our property rights, safety, the oversight of potential development rights, and our general environment will be better protected. Zoning has not been defined for the land in question. If it transfers to Franklin Township, it can be modified after transfer without our input by the present or future developer to a commercial, industrial, high-density housing classification or something similar. Based on this fact, we are concerned about the impact of future development on our property values if the Kent R2 zoning classification changes. The Kent R2 zoning has provisions for recreational areas within the R2 zone. So the owner has the capability of working with the city to allow for this type of development if all the requirements of other county, state, and federal entities are met. Beyond the zoning issues, there does not appear to be a property tax advantage to transfer the land to Franklin Township. Ultimately, we feel there are many questions still to be answered. Has a study been commissioned to answer these questions? Finally, at this point, it appears to us there does not seem to be an advantage for the City of Kent to give up its territorial involvement in the property, which is already in its jurisdiction, without more study. We ask Council that the transfer ordinance not be prepared at this time. In addition, we ask that no action be taken until all the questions presented today and more that may arise as new information becomes available get answered. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Further from the audience?
I'm Linda Miles, and I live at 1169 Windward Lane in Kent, and our property is adjacent to the property in question. I have a little bit of laryngitis, sorry. I just want to mention that I am not trustful of Mr. Kolb and his claims for what he wants to do with the land. I, too, prefer that the City of Kent maintain control. He's already shown flagrant disregard for rules and regulations. He has destroyed habitat without proper permitting. He has burned large piles of debris without permitting. And he has taken debris from a bridge somewhere that's being built in Kent and dumped it on his property, also without permitting, with the intent of building a road for his own use. He has not looked into any city ordinances. He has not looked into anything except his own interests. And I think by giving the land to Portage County, we're taking a big risk about what happens with that land. And I ask, please, that Kent City Council retain our rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone further in the audience?
Thank you. My name is Jason Kolb. I live at 4253 Newcomer Road, Kent. My brother Eric and his wife Carol are the owners of the property in question. About 2 years ago, my brother was the highest bidder at a public auction for this parcel of land, and as the winner of that auction, it should surprise nobody that he and his family wish to use the property, including the lake, for personal recreation. We've heard a tremendous amount of concerns tonight. Honestly, Eric and the family and I are shocked at the highly organized opposition to his personal use of this property. I thought that final comment was slightly unkind as well, that you don't find him trustworthy. Regarding concerns of noise pollution, I assure you that the sound of a boat in water is no louder than a lawnmower. And I know that because I sit up on the hill and I hear the lawnmowers down in the neighborhood, and honestly, it's no big deal. Neighbors mow their lawn, we understand that. I expect it 1 or 2 hours a week to hear that from my neighbors. I heard concerns about his taxes are going to go up, his safety is going to be compromised because it's Portage County Sheriff, and I heard concerns about standing water, flooding, environment, wetland mitigation, and climate change. My gut feeling is that your concern is what my concern was when Bob Hyman and the Vismeg brothers own the land, that there's going to be development. There is not going to be development on the land. We're not putting houses on the land. We're not putting commercial enterprises, ski lake, grandstand on the land. It's personal recreation use, gentleman farming. Eric wishes to be a good neighbor. He is a good neighbor. That's why he tried to go around and meet all of you and hear your questions and your concerns. It's why Eric doesn't make a fuss and didn't make a fuss when neighbors walked on the property, when neighbors walked their dog on the property, when neighbors dumped their grass clippings on the property, and when neighbors took some of that Carlisle muck, which is very rich, and put it in their own flower beds. Because Eric's a good neighbor. And he'll continue to be a good neighbor even after this property transfers back to Franklin Township, if it pleases the council to grant this assent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further from the audience? Back to council.
Wait, you got
Oh,
one?
I'm sorry. Thank you. Go ahead.
Randy Snyder, 4405 Newcomer Road, and although my property doesn't abut the property owner's property in question, we do see we have property down Johnson Road, and I do have one question. You had stated that, well, what I heard from the property owner is all they want to do is have it for personal and private use and agricultural, gentleman farming, and so forth. Are they not allowed to farm that if that's under Kent jurisdiction?
Agriculture is a conditionally permitted use, so it would need to go through our department, and we need to look at it, and it have to go through planning commission. Yeah,
Okay.
but we need to, it's based on acreage, what's happening, all that. And because of it being in a floodplain, a permit's needed for any activities that occur on that. Just, it's not that it's prohibited, it needs to be looked at to ensure that it doesn't have a negative impact.
I see. So I guess my question to the property owner and to the council is, if the only reason they want that is for personal and private use, they already have that. And if they want to farm it, it seems like that is still an option, whether it's in Kent or Franklin Township. So as a neighbor to that property, I would urge you to leave it in Kent, because I don't see any reason, and I'm not questioning anybody's integrity, but I don't know, again, why you would want to change it to Franklin Township, go through all the expense and trouble that they're going through if all they're going to use it for is personal, private use, and or agriculture, which is what they have now. Thank you.
Thank you. One final call for the audience. Thank you, Forest Lakes, for putting that together and keeping it rather concise, too, for the sake of time. Back to the
Yeah, I have a
council.
question for Eric.
For
Eric.
Oh, so there.
No, you.
You.
So, if we were to make a motion to not allow the detachment of these lands, would you recommend that, or would you recommend we just take no action to move to allow it? So what would be best for the city in this case?
As you said, if you choose to take no action, it will die for lack of a motion. It won't get to the county commissioners. And at that point in time, the property owner would have the right to take the matter, file a complaint in the common pleas court. They'd have that right. And in the common pleas court would review the action. They would be able to look and see that there was no action taken by the city council. It would not be in favor. It would not be opposed. It would just be, they wouldn't have anything to go on. Should the city council choose to pass a resolution in favor or against it, then the Court of Common Pleas would be able to look at that action as well and factoring into its decision.
Thank you.
Further?
I don't have a question.
Oh, can I get Mike?
So in other words, whatever we do is going to court.
Not necessarily, but if the property owner desires to continue to pursue a detachment of lands and it's not granted by city council, whether by lack of a motion or by a motion denying the request, his next possible avenue for getting it detached is by taking it to the Court of Common Pleas.
And if we vote to detach it, it goes right to the county commissioners.
County commissioners, that is correct.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Turner?
Yeah, and give me a little.
You got to step a little closer to the mic for the audience, please.
Maybe also give me a little guidance on this. I'm still trying to determine the desire for the request for detachment. What are the negative implications by the petitioner for the necessity or the desire to leave the city of Kent? I understand the people's concern simply because they actually feel that there's not going to be a consistent application of a law of protection for them. But how do you feel injury in this process that you are initiating? I mean, why do you feel what are we doing in the city of Kent that you feel is problematic?
What?
But I can't answer that.
No, no.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Bridget, you only wish.
Excuse me, what, Mr. Kolb, just one second. I'd like to defer to the law director. Is that germane to what, is his question germane to the issue that council needs to be addressing?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. That's his choice. It's in the law. He's allowed to petition council for it, and it's council's job to decide if you're going to go along with his petition to detach or not.
But
He's
trying to
read.
That's my question. I'm trying to understand why he feels a necessity to detach. I mean, what's his rationale so that I can make a decision about it? But you're saying that that's inappropriate?
I don't think it's an appropriate question, but if Mr. Kolb would like to answer
Well, he was
it,
here.
he can answer it. If you would prefer not to, that's fine too.
Go ahead.
Yes, very quickly, I'll just reiterate what I started with. And number one is the property that I did buy at the auction turns out to be 2 parcels. So one parcel is in Franklin Township, and it's the road frontage that I own on Johnson Road, and that's the only way I can access the property. So they talked about the cul-de-sac that never happened, and a new landowner bought a piece of land coming in from the Forest Lakes neighborhood. So I have no access from a Kent road, per se. So number one, that's the reason I want both of my parcels under the same jurisdiction. Number two, as Bridget kind of mentioned, and she agreed that she had said that the property is landlocked, meaning I can't really get those plotted lots and neighborhood plans to put Phase 4 in on this property marked out in the black here. Just couldn't happen. So because of that, I can't get to those city utilities and services that Kent can provide me if they could provide me. So if real quick, I'll just point at the map and show you a couple of things.
Sure.
So here's the cul-de-sac coming in, and there's this chunk of property right here that someone's building a nice home on right here. So now there's no way for me to like get to this road. This was always part of the farmland. In fact, there's an oil well road that goes right through Mr. Petrosini's property. And to just actually say why that there's some road being moved, it's where the oil well used to be on my property. So the oil well guy doesn't have to drive onto Jeremy's land anymore. Jeremy doesn't want that. He needs the dirt for another project. So we're just putting one kind of right here just to get where the road is here to here, and there's an oil well up here. That's kind of beside the point. But then up here on John Road, you're coming up Newcomer. You come here, the last 1, 2, 3, 4. These parcels are Franklin Township and have always been Franklin Township. This always was for Township till 2006 when the resolution passed March 2nd, I believe. But then I owned this little sliver, kind of like a 50, 75-foot front, all the way down Johnson, skip these two parcels, then even this little sliver here. So all the frontage is Franklin Township. I just am simply asking, I want it all to be Franklin Township. I can't get any water and sewer services in from here because of this new lot being built. I mean, maybe there would be a way, but I don't think it sounds like the city of Kent would pay to bury under this 4 yards and give me a water line here if I had to build a single-family residence. Then the other thing is, as you come down Johnson Road, right in this area, there's a sign that says, "What Franklin Township?" And then the very first driveway is mine right here, and I'm the city of Kent. So I'm like saying, I just want Franklin Township. And if you go down Johnson Road all the way down, I think Bridget can agree, there's not any other properties on Johnson Road that are city of Kent, period. And in fact, if you look at the zoning map of city of Kent, this is the northwest quadrant. This is the most northerly and westerly spot of the city of Kent. So it just makes sense to put it back as rural farmland. And I don't know that the city of Kent is really wanting to jurisdict this area. So I guess that's the short.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yeah, could you come back to the map, Mr. Cole, for a minute? Okay. Which part have you also purchased that's in Franklin Township?
So it's this, well, the dot line, I don't know that it's written in here separately, but consider the frontage of the whole property. So this and this are what, so this whole frontage is actually Franklin Township. It turns out to be about 1 acre. So this line has now disappeared, and after Bruce Robinson did the whole survey, there's now currently one parcel for this whole section.
Right.
And then there's one parcel for this kind of all the way down, and then even this little nub right
What about those 2 properties that you, yeah.
These are owned by somebody else.
Yeah.
This is owned by a residence here, and this is something that was retained by the sellers when I bought this property, retained this little parcel for themselves.
So what, can I ask a question?
One.
Okay. So we could support, I would believe, I'm speaking for myself, as a council person, I would support you annexing that lot of land there and it become part of Kent, and that solves the problem. You have symmetry, your whole land is in one jurisdiction. Would you support that?
Quick question. Are you guys going to maintain this road and do road and repave it? It's very bumpy. It's kind of like a county road.
I don't think that's the pertinent question.
I would say no.
Okay. Fair enough.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
go right ahead.
Everybody ready for that? I would like to move to deny the request to detach this properties from the city of Kent.
Further on the motion?
I would like to, I don't really find Mr. Kolb's reasoning compelling, but that doesn't matter. What I do find compelling are the resident concerns of the property right now, also into the future. And there's just 2 questions in my mind as to what really is going on. So I believe it's not in the community's interest to detach these lands. I don't think it's in the environment's interest either. We can consider the community part of the environment and the community. So that's me to vote.
Anything, Ms. Wallach? All right. Any further comments? Mr. Kuhar?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Heidi on this, but I also want to, let the residents know that the way it's laid out now in the city of Kent, if you had any developers that wanted to build, there would be nothing stopping them from building if they could meet all the requirements. You could be looking at your lots to somebody else's back lots and have all the problems that you said you don't want. But with this consideration of people opposed to it, I don't think we have any choice but to deny the motion.
Further on the motion, Mr. Sidoti?
Yeah, I really believe,
Or
Mr.
deny
Cole,
the attachment. So
I really believe that I hear Cole at face value, and so there's no judgment on what his plans are or his plans aren't. But I'm kind of mystified at the idea that he's just got a small bit of frontage in Franklin Township. Why not just extend it into Kent, Ohio? And that solves the problem. It gives you symmetry. I also believe that there would be a way, I think if there was development ever to go in there, I believe that easements are possible for water lines and all that. I don't think that we should bear that responsibility, that we don't bear the responsibility for any developers anyway. So, yeah, I'm in support of denying it. I would rather annex more land than give land back. That's my opinion.
Mr. Turner?
Yeah, to go along with what Mr. Sidoti was saying, listening to the concerns expressed by the residents and our ability to apply a law in a way which best guarantees their interest probably takes precedence with me. I don't have any problem with Mr. Kolb. I think it's reasonable for him to want to try and do a detachment. It's also reasonable for his neighbors to be concerned and about how that and what the implications are for him and other members of the community. And the unique application of doing a detachment we had previously never heard of. Good work on that, but I think it's reasonable for us to consider denying that and then attempting to, in whatever way we can, guarantee that the residents who live in the city of Kent are protected. And so I'll be voting to deny that as well.
Okay. So let's call a vote. So all those in favor of them to deny the request signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes, and that will conclude Land Use Committee and
We'll go 5 minutes for you guys. Hey, you're welcome to stay.
Yeah, more than welcome to stay.
We're building a new
Come
city
on.
hall. We'll be able to host all you one day.
You haven't had this much fun with him, right? Come on. Hey, Hope. So, I asked that question.
Wow. Oh, no, it's 8:30. Okay.
See them all in court. We'll see them all in court. Becky Gordon.
Yeah. It could be pretty mean.
So I'm trying to think of ahead here. Maybe it's because I see the end of my life. Get some things fixed up. We should be able to look at those rules.
Started.
Well,
All
no,
right.
he wants to comment on that, so we can wait for him.
Well, all right.
Do something else.
Let's wait a minute. Let's just give him one more minute. I can't believe he isn't.
Quiet in here.
Yeah.
Do you want to do your City Hall update?
No.
Okay. Is he nearby?
I thought I was president
Yeah.
of council. Let me handle this. Let's do the, how long is the parking ordinance?
Could be.
I could quick, just as long as you tell no people not to answer that question. I can
You
talk.
do, right? That's right.
That's
You
not
can
gonna
do what
take
you
long.
want.
Do that.
Oh, here he comes. Here.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I'm sorry.
Interviews for
Sorry, Jeff.
commissioners.
Okay. Get the long ones done.
Okay.
Public safety.
Health and Safety Committee, the first,
Then we're gonna go right to the recycling.
would ask that the mayor, so that I can ask questions.
All right. Melanie, go with.
So thank you for your guidance and assistance in preparing and establishing this. We do have representatives tonight from Republic here with us. As from the Portage County Solid Waste District, I did see Ms. Take a moment to thank all of those that placed a bid with this. It's a large undertaking. There's a lot of material to go through. Appreciate that we were able to receive 4 sealed envelope bids and 1 request that they were not placed. Thank all of them for doing that and helping us to secure the best prices. To begin with, I started looking at our trash and recycling contracts, and I began that process by talking to all of the industry leaders out there so that I could discuss industry trends, where we were currently with our contracts, hopes were for moving forward, and all of this was to garner understanding of the current trends and what, if anything, as a city better to gain better pricing for our residents. I have representatives from Kimball, Portage County, and Republic beginning in February prior to my first council in March. At our first meeting in March, I shared some information with council on the city's current contracts, both trash and recycling, what our communities were doing around us, what was happening in the industry, the possibility of looking at other cities, and then discuss council's desire for contracts, specifically levels of service, pricing, etc. I then met with Rumpke the following week after that meeting discussion. In April, I came to council with forbidding, which included keeping our original contract with 5 levels of service, adding recycling. I also offered 2 alternates, if we remember. One that had service, a 65, 95-gallon service, and then one that was strictly 65, or 35, 95, and 65 to allow for unlimited service. The bidding process then began in April, and as per the Ohio Revised Code, the city placed a public in the Record Courier on Monday, April 10th, giving no requests for bids. The bid was placed again in the Record on Monday, April 17th, as required. One could have pulled a bid for trash and recycling as advertised, and we did have 4 contractors pull that. A pre-bid meeting was held on Thursday, 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Representatives present were from Kimball, Republic, and Rumpke. The bids were then publicly opened and read on April 28th at 10 a.m. at 9:30 Overholt. We received 4 sealed envelopes containing bids that were stamped and signed in that day. One sealed bid contained a letter from Waste Management stating not wish to place a bid at this time. 3 bids were in red. Those bids were from Rumpke, Republic, and Kimball. Those presents for the bid opening were Portage Solid Waste District, Kimball, Republic, Rumpke, and Management. At the conclusion of that bid tabulation sheet was prepared, and the bids were put in order of base bid and alternates. Bidder for the 5 levels of trash service is Republic. Republic was the apparent low bidder for recycling. To review this option and to pursue its outcome was based on concern in the April committee meeting to allow for Kent residents to choose the amount of trash and recycling they would. As noted in previous meetings and stated by 50% of Kent's population fall at or below the option for the bag service was heavily debated as an option by council. When reviewing the current pricing for trash and added our current recycling and compared those numbers with the 5 years established, those 5 years begin in July of 2020 and goes to June 30th of 2024 and continue from 2024 to 2025 out to of 2028. The bid showed savings to the residents of Kent for 5 years, to the bag customer 4 years for all levels of service except for the 95 service. And on year 5, there would be the first 3 levels of our service would see an increase compared to our current contract. Tabulation form that you have in front of you, I have highlighted the Republic Code, what the proposed total for those services will be for the next 5 years. I would like to note that I think it's that I did not show any increases from our current on either that trash or the recycling portion of that. But as I understand and want to point out, if you look at bid on all levels, there was an increase incremental year, indicating, as I've come to learn, the increment cost for trash and recycling was for every year, and as I understand it, industry trends indicate that increases will be needed based on the current and activities within Northeast Ohio. With this information, our current contract, Portage County Solid Waste District, required that we provide a 30-day notice to the end of our contract if we did not wish to utilize the automatic renewal of that contract. It was prepared, reviewed, and sent out to the district to allow council to have the ability to review the bids received for recycling. It is after careful review and discussion with all haulers who provided a bid, I have recommended to council to accept the bid of Republic Services for the 2023 trash and recycling contract. This contract will cover 5 years with 3-year option extensions predicated on acceptable terms of pricing and service at that time. The contract will remain consistent with 5 levels of service and recycling every other week as currently being experienced by city residents. The contract will be a 45% savings to our residents in the first year, and this keeps our current trash prices consistent for the next year. I think this is important to note because our trash prices have not risen since 2018, the initial bid from Republic. As stated earlier, the award will allow residents to continue to have savings for the next 4+ years, allowing residents of Kent to benefit from the savings. As we had discussed in a prior council meeting 2 months ago, by looking globally, our residents' minimum bills for all services that include sewer, water, storm, and other solid waste, this savings on trash and recycle will provide our residents with an ease of one bill services and a savings that translates to dollars back into their household incomes. Items that I'd like to note into the bid. We do have a spring cleanup, was an important part of the contract and a concern for discussion in council. This cost per ton stayed consistent with this bid. I would like to note, I hope I don't jinx myself as we started it this week, the last 3 years for spring cleanup has gone off without a hitch. All items set out have picked up. Residents were helpful in the amount of spacing for pickup and followed rules for wrapping items and assisting to ensure pickup could be safely done in an efficient manner. The tire drop-off was not a service provided under our last contract, but was added this time. This service was picked up by the city, and the price did go up on this bid, but it is still lower than the other bids received. Our downtown can pickup is a service provided by the city on a 3 days a week schedule between October and mid-May, and on a 6 day a week schedule for mid-May through the beginning of November. This price did go down by half for the city. While this is a challenging task, as we have over 100 cans to be picked up and continually add to it, if cans are missed, we will work with the hauler to get them picked up. I only note this because we do get some complaints during the heavy summer months when pizza boxes are trying to be crammed into those small circular. So we are consistently looking to try and work on a way, whether it is putting something next to those that the boxes could be smushed and placed in. But that's typically our main reason for overflow. And we have our popular spots, such as Franklin, Dan Smith Park, where we do see trash. On occasion, we do send our personnel down to get that if needed, because it is very important for us for our downtown to stay clean and look nice. There were a couple items brought to my attention that I felt I wanted to address. One of the things that I was questioned today on were for the totes. The contract does not allow for costs or additional totes. As well, I did confirm the submitted by Republic has been established, and it will include the delivery of new totes for recycling as well as any new customers, pricing all placement of both in the future. I thought it was pretty nice to also learn as I was going through the process. We currently have very few residents that actually use trash cans, and there is no second trash can by Republic. There was a question about an ability for everyone to place. The bids, as I already stated, were publicly bid according to law. The bids were written specifically to on any of the items listed. As you can see, the items were listed for trash, to recycling, to city services, to tire pickup and cleanup, and to downtown can pickup. These were all separate categories by years offered, giving any bid on any, all, or none of the items as the bids received. Alternates were also offered, and a question asked at the pre-bid meeting and answered in advance if any other alternates, separate or cities, could be submitted. The answer was yes. Alternates could be submitted and that the city reserved the right to reject in all bids and waive any and all informalities. Any question or concerns, there was nothing beyond this submitted. Recycling is a huge for all of us. It was brought to my attention, and there was as to the fact that there are thoughts that Republic actually dumps recycling in land. I cannot speak on behalf of Republic. They are, as my recommended low bidder, I would invite them up to explain processes, but I do know that there are laws that exist that prohibit that activity. To such, all trash haulers must fees to respective counties for all trash collected and placed in from the county. Portage County has the second highest, $9.60. So the thought for me of placing recycling materials in a landfill at a cost of $9.60 per ton seems to be counterproductive to the haulers to the landfill. If you are on that, I would be happy to invite Republic up. I also wanted to cover the question that was brought up by council in reference to green. Again, all haulers provided me with that they're all attempting to go green, whether that's converting their vehicles to CNG vehicles, electric vehicles, doing all of those different things. I only provide, because I think it's important that it is big in their minds, the ability of using the methane from their landfills into gas and being able to recycle product. And I believe in front of you, you received a package, again, public, explaining those things to you. And again, I'm sure they would be explaining that a little bit more. The final item before I invite Republic up is the fuel surcharge. This is not a hidden charge, a part of our bidding specifications. It is submitted. It is section 13.10. The basis for the fuel surcharge is the cost of fuel changes dramatically and that a fuel compensates the contractor for the difference in the cost of fuel trip on the date when the contract was first entered into at some time in the future. There's no government regulations as to exactly how to be calculated, and each company has developed their own. Each bidder shall provide a detailed explanation of surcharge implementation policy and how they calculate their fuel surcharge as they will use in contract. The city further understands that obtain the best possible price for trash collection for its residents allow the contractor to recoup costs which are beyond control and as such will allow for a fuel surcharge. Used by each bidder will be considered selecting the lowest. The current surcharge did meet the current contract that is in place. Will go away on July 1st when a new contract into. The new methodology actually consideration a threshold established by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, that being what was the average in April, $4.09 a gallon. Time the price raises for diesel fuel based on that Energy Information Administration to $4.75 for a 3-month period. That average will be taken. This is also on your packet there. That number will then take $4.75 minus 3, if that was the average, making it a 6-cent difference. That is then times percent for a total cost of 6 cents a month. That would add 18 cents to a quarterly bill. It is in of the trash or recycling component and only goes to the city to compensate the contractor for escalating prices that are out of their control. I hope that kind of answers all the questions. I'm sorry?
Is that fuel surcharge contract or the recycling contract?
It is for the, and it is independent of either if fuel prices are escalated.
Okay.
Melanie, before I go back to the council, where you said it'd be a savings of 45% when you
Yes, sir.
started?
Yes.
Of over what?
That is correct, sir.
Oh, wow. All right, who's question for council? John?
6 cents, is that container or per customer?
And please correct me if I'm incorrect, but it is per customer.
Customer, okay. And is there any possibility that the bid winner has done the math on the mileage that trucks do in our city and the amount of fuel that they've consumed in our city, how that breaks down to the fuel cost?
I guess from that, but they're basing their numbers on, if I can repeat that again, the numbers are based on the U.S. Energy Information Administration, which is actually a government entity that indicates what those fuel charges are. And just to clarify even further, they're only utilizing the fuel charges that are for the Midwest. So they're not using the national average or any other location. They are specifically honing in on the Midwest, which is where we are located.
I guess my question stems on the information that if you're picking up trash in a rural area, you're putting more miles per customer on. But if you're picking up trash in a municipality, you're getting a lot of customers for the time that the vehicle is running, so the amount of fuel per customer is a lot less. So I don't know if there's any fluctuation in the fuel recovery costs. And then the end of the question is when you go to electric vehicles, does that disappear?
That's a good question. I'm going to assume that when it goes to electric vehicles, it would disappear fuel, but as we are finding from the government, they're also placed taxes on electric and everything to recoup those dollars. That would be beyond the scope of my ability to answer.
They got to get their money to pay for roads somehow. Heidi?
Yeah, I wish I really could have studied this before, but I'm reading that there's a 40 savings for recycling. Is that over the current, what we are currently for Portage County?
Correct. We are $50 per resident and the billers.
Too bad. Did we have a recycling bid that was separated out from and recycling combined?
Well, they're not going to look at your bid sheet there. Everything is completely separate. So you have your trash, the 1 through 5 series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then there's a space, a blank, recycling. There's an option 1 and an option 2.
This was not presented to us originally. Oh, I mean, where the Portage County solid waste bid?
Portage County did not submit a bid.
Were they allowed to?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I thought we were putting, we had just put this out as a bid.
No, it was a multi-level bid. As you see there, everything was divided so that it could be bid on individual or not at all. And we did receive one bid for not at all.
And that was a direct result of conversations with Portage County. Even Dave Minner was here. We were very clear. We actually unbundled it just so we could make sure, because everybody wanted to see a bid from the county. We would like the county to be able to come back and say, hey, $3 per household. Notices our pricing was higher than most of our compatriot cities around us who were not using, for hoping maybe they would get more competitive too. I know Melanie had meetings with Dawn, throughout the process, encouraging her to submit bids. Came to the council meeting where we talked about this. So unfortunately, over the years, Streetsboro and other places have same thing we're facing, is that trying to get the best price. And for whatever reason right now, Director is able to produce more competitive pricing. But yes, they absolutely had a chance to bid.
For now.
We're going this way. Tracy?
Yeah, does Republic own its own land?
Yes.
And has the written up already, they're not signed?
Is exactly what's in the bid specs, and nothing has been entered with name of that information.
So can you show me in the contract where that the recyclables picked up at the curb are actually recycled and filled when the prices fall out?
Requiring that in the bid?
You said that you would do that.
It was just specifically spelled out there, but I
don't have the contract yet.
Because last time you said you were going to.
Maybe this is good to address that question, since you, or staff, whoever is the most appropriate, but I know you talked about Melanie too, and you didn't report it back, so yeah, please, okay. You're more appropriate to be concerned, which I'm sure you hear.
Yeah, she's done a very good job of explaining this, but I'm not sure what's in the contract.
Just for the record, give
I'm sorry. Brent Boker, General Public Services. I run the Akron-Canton market. East Terry Thompson manager, and actually your route supervisor, Dr. Brian Poole, that oversees day operations in the city. I brought him with me also.
Thank you.
To answer your question, ma'am, we do not take recycling oil. First off, it's banned from a landfill. I'd lose my land permit. Our company prohibits such a thing. I would lose my job if we did something like that. You can't do that. It's illegal. We'd be in a lot of trouble if we did. So I can assure you your recycling is going to be transferred from here. Some background on what we do through recycling. I service many communities in the area now. Currently, we have a reciprocating agreement with Waste Management. For example, we take material to them here. In Michigan, they bring it to us. We go back and forth. So currently, your recycling here would be collected, taken to the waste facility located in Akron by the blimp hangar. That actually processes recycling right now. I think that's where Portage County takes their share. But they're actually shutting that facility down. So they're down to processing over there. It's going to become a transfer station. At this point, they're going to take it, put it in trucks, and truck it all the way to Cleveland because it's a substantial investment in their, it's called a MRF, a material facility. So they're going to go up to that facility. So we're seeing an increase in our cost also that we build into this. We're in a plan right now, probably 1 to 2 years, I'll be building in the Akron towards my transfer station. And we're going to start using this stuff, their own facility in Oberlin, which is up in the Elyria area. We have a facility up there that we process right now, 260 tons a day. Our goal this year is 80 tons of recycling just at that location. But as a company, we have 71 MRFs across the country, expanding every day. You know, we're a large corporation. But I hope that answers your question on the recycling. Sir, you talked exactly what you said. We have a performa model. We know how long it takes to drive from here to there, to the recycler, to those different things. We program that into the fuel calculation. That's calculated based on the city of Kent. It might be different in other locations.
Thank you.
So when recyclables are no longer, what do you do?
Recycling isn't profitable now.
I know.
We are a sustainability company. We have a whole platform. If you want to, I'll walk through this with you and tell you what we do, proud of what we do. If recycling was profitable, no one would be doing it. If we didn't want to do it, no one would be doing it because there's a cost associated with this. If you talk to myself, Waste Management, we're the big players, Rumpke, whoever, they'll tell you there is to run recycling programs. That's built into your model here. So we're not making recycling now. Unfortunately, it costs more to recycle products than it does get rid of stuff in the landfill. We out-dump it in the landfill, but you're eventually probably get in trouble and go to jail. I don't plan on doing that. If I can touch on this real quick, I want to mention a couple things. Talk about going green. I put a packet in front of you. This is just a cover page right here. Some of the things we've done, we do about 5 million pickups a day. We have 17,000 trucks every day that runs across the country. Because of our sustainability plan, we understood the cost and the problems of greenhouse gases, so we made a decision several years ago to convert our fleet into compressed natural gas. Currently, we have 20% of our entire fleet across the country that's running on compressed natural gas, but things change. By doing that, we reduced greenhouse emissions by 9% since 2017, which is a huge impact on the country, in the world, I should say. We're going to continue to build upon that. We got into this program, spent millions and millions and millions of dollars, and then realized we could do more. If you flip to the second page, this is what we're doing right now. We're the only active large company that's really in the process of doing this right now. We have prototypes running right now in Iowa and California, running full routes every day. These are electric trucks. This is the future of garbage. If you look at the cover page again, down here a little bit further, it says 50% by 2028, we're going to be running total electric. That's wrong since we made this sheet. It's actually since 2027. We're backed it up a year. We expect to have 50% of all of our purchases going to be electric trucks, and our goal is by 2030 to have 65% of our entire fleet running under electricity, because it'll continue to do the greenhouse emissions, reduce those, and do the right thing for everybody. Countywide landfill, a lot of your garbage goes to the landfill countywide. It's in East Sparta. Currently, right now, I have a gas project starting down there. I left the Youngstown market a while back, and I had a big project over there, about a $40 million project. We made electricity over there. We had 18 engines that made enough electricity for about 18,000 homes a day. We're actually doing away with that because gas is the future. We have a $40 million project underway right now in the Youngstown market. It'll be up and running probably towards the end of this year, that they'll be doing about 9,000 SCFM, which stands for standard cubic feet a minute of natural gas we pull off our landfill. My point of this is we're doing the exact same thing right down the road for your garbage, where it goes to East Sparta. The project is slowly starting this year, but it'll be completed by 2024. That landfill is not as big as the one in Youngstown. We'll have 3,200 square feet of gas being collected per minute in there. That'll be pumped into the grid that people can use in your homes or whatever it's going to be at that point. So we're doing a lot of things to improve the environment. This next page right here, the third page, and I'm talking quickly, but I want to get through this. I know everybody's been here late. Circularity for recycling. This is a really, really big deal. And the reason I bring that up is last year we did 5 million tons of recycling material, 1 million tons of organics, 56 million gallons of wastewater, 2 million gallons of oil, 5 million pounds of glycol, and 26 million tons, I said pounds, it should be tons, of metals. But this right here, we have technology out now. This is why we're so heavily invested in recycling. We have patented technology. A lot of you guys have water bottles sitting on your tables. When you throw those in a recycle bin, I don't know if you know what happens to them. Most of them turn into carpet, they turn into park benches, different things like that, because you can't get it back to the purity to make a water bottle again. We have technology where all these products we do, we'll take this to our MRF in Oberlin, we'll process, we'll collect those bottles, it'll be transferred to one of our processing facilities where we can take that back to a pure product like that, where it's really valuable, and we'll turn that water bottle back into a water bottle again, which helps the environment. So we do things like this that really is what we're proud of, to make our sustainability intact and continue to do the right thing for the environment. We used to be known as a garbage company. Then we were known as then we called ourselves a recycling company. Now we consider ourselves an environmental company, because our overall product is environment and improving things for everybody. So, and that's a quick overview. I was going to talk on the other things. There's a little bit in here about the fuel surcharge. The fuel surcharge, just so you know, and I explained this to Melody earlier today, even if assume 409 is your base rate, if, say it goes up $2 a gallon, goes up to $6.09, you're going to take that $2 divided or times it by 10%, which is 20 cents, and it'd be 60 cents a month that we want to add it on to your current bill, which is still a very, assuming it gets to probably the worst case scenario. I don't think it'll go that high. Good chance if things continue the way they are, you won't even see a fuel charge in the near future because prices continue to drop. Right now, we're in the $3.90 number, so you're in a pretty good place right now going into this contract.
If I can answer the question, because I did find it here in the book. Under laws and regulations applicable law, the bidder's attention is the fact that all applicable state of Ohio laws, municipal ordinances, regulations of all authorities having jurisdiction over the performance of recycling, hauling, and disposal shall comply with this. That will cover our current laws and ordinances here in the city of Kent, which requires that recycling to be done according to the state law.
And then how do we see that that's happening, and what are the consequences if it doesn't?
I can't guarantee that it's currently happening with our correct, so I'm not quite sure what I could do, but I can monthly abilities to have.
What I was going to say is we supply weight tickets and tonnages that a lot of things we do this for. That's something I could obviously give you guys.
Sure. We currently do that now. They provide us with the trash, and we get Portage County as well.
Okay, thank you. You had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, looking at, I assume that this is the price, right, on this chart?
I'm sorry, it's a little...
That's small.
Yes, that is the bid price, or the
Yeah.
brown is the combined price.
Yeah.
The bid plus.
I just want, well, I think that there, people look at their bills. You know, mom and pops are at home looking at their bills and trying to understand, are really critical. It appears that this, by the time I publicly put on glasses, I just want you to know. That's a true story. Only he's trying to blind you. 14, it says, I'm going to use my bill I brought as an example. It says $14.70 is the base bid for a 5-gallon insert, okay? So that $14.70, and you're saying that I should add 6 cents for the fuel charge on that?
Not right. That was just the standard language we put
So
in there
there
as
will
an
be no
example.
fuel in there.
As of today, if it goes a 3-month average and stays that, institute that. But right now, fuel prices are down, so I don't have anything as of
So
today.
there-
That could
so-
change tomorrow, but it's going the other way right now.
So that $14.70, because I can't see it, that $14.75, basically, I'm paying right now, including the fuel charge, $19.19. Is that about right? It's actually going to go down?
Yes. And I'd like to note the current fuel surcharge that is on there was not implemented in May of 2022, which is when the fuel prices had hit all-time highs.
Yeah, that's a question. It doesn't matter who's going to get this contract, there's going to be a fuel charge sooner or later. Am I right or wrong?
That is correct. No,
Possibility, okay.
only a possibility
I mean, any
should the
business
charges
is
go
going
up.
to
Correct.
use that. All right.
But there's different ways of, I mean, you can either, how do I want to say it? I will say, as someone that's dealing with contracts very similar to this throughout my career, we consider the formula-based surcharge as being described here kind of a best practice, because that tends to represent the best balance. Because if you're a bidder and you have a 5-year contract, and potentially up to 8 years, and you, as of right now, guess what the fuel's going to be in 5 years, 8 years, so what are you going to do? You're going to crank your price up really to give yourself coverage, or if you have ship built in your contract where you have a fuel charge, where you say, hey, look, if it gets high enough, and that 5-cent trigger is, if it gets that high, that's a cost we should share. And then if it happens to go to that, it goes back to where it was. And keep it, that's why, I know it's easy to lose, we got so much to throw at you, and I kept talking to Melanie, I'm like, we're going to get through all this, but I can't think of, including city services, I can't think of any contractor working with that for 5 years now we priced, and now he's bidding again on the new 5-year contract at the exact same price. What products are you buying that have it in 6 years? Now, does he, at the end of that cycle, right, and we're in year 5, surprising to me, and then you throw in COVID and the crazy inflation, surprising to me that all of a sudden we saw the fuel surcharge there at the end, because designed to work. We kept our prices low throughout. As it got fuel price, et cetera, that's when it responds. And that's kind of the basic premise. What I'm going to assume, I'm assuming they just built a certain amount of that into cost, so maybe that's why it's $5.50. But there are different ways of handling it. I'm sorry.
Roger, are you done?
No, one other question. Is the price, this current price 75, I'm just using this as a point for, if you in fact didn't do the recycle up also, would that $14.75 still stay there? Or only $5 for picking up trash, dependent on also our recycling?
No, they're independent.
They're totally independent.
Yeah, you have garbage.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you.
You're done?
Yes.
All right. Nobody on this table. Anything? Jack?
Yeah. So you're telling me that Portage County had the opportunity, chose not to bid?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is that your question? Oh,
you should
all right, we're to
respond.
John again. We're coming back up.
That just leads to a question to Melanie. That be, why on earth would the person that runs recycle call me this morning or yesterday telling me not to accept that bid, except they don't even have a bid?
That's correct. There is no bid from Portage County, and I believe that would be the...
Yeah, and all I can tell you is, we had multiple part of those conversations. She was urged to submit early on, as early as February, and we were very clear. We purposely designed the bids so he could submit a bid without having to do trash. Otherwise, we would have combined the bid from start to finish. If there was a misunderstanding on her part, I apologize. It's not for lack of, discussion and information.
Yeah, I was told that their bid was, Republic's was $3, but you can't believe that. Got something that makes it not really be $3. Now he's saying they didn't even bid. Let's see.
Hey, Heidi, going back up this side, anybody else? Robin, you have something?
If this is appropriate, we'll be out of order for this. What I was told is that there was an existing, and therefore, and when they came in here last time, well, they had an existing contract, and therefore, they didn't feel it was appropriate to come back in and rebid. I have to assume that there's what the contract is, in effect.
Well, their bid is, it ends on June. It can end at any time with a 60-day notice from either party, and it's only an automatic if that isn't addressed. Republic is currently under bid for us and contract with us. They bid in the past, poured their contract with us, and still placed bids into team as well. In fact,
Yeah, thanks. Anybody else? Go to the audience.
Can I make a statement? Or do I have to just ask?
Well, no. Okay.
Yeah, I give Kent as one of the pioneers of recycling, and I'm really heartsick over the fact that Portage County did not place a bid, because I feel some loyalty there. They were, we helped to establish them, and quite understanding why there was no bid made, so.
All right, let's go to the audience. Come and address and share your concern with us.
Hi, Joan Collins, Portage County Recycling. It's made very clear Portage County Recycling would not submit, and let me explain why. We were going through difficulties as a district. First, to ensure the longevity, the district standardized our agreements, public hearings, and then established price rate. Since the district did not give the details with the current agreement, remained in effect. It was made clear to bid because of that agreement being in effect. So I wanted to address that. So we did end the current with the city of Streetsboro and with the city of Aurora bid on those contracts. We value our partnership, and we hope to continue providing service here. We have never charged a fuel surcharge. Our bid was competitive with the two other that were placed. And I'm really glad that Republic announced is not a market for recycling right now at a loss. Yet a year and a half ago, they placed a bid for $35. And right now it came in really low. I can't explain that because it's really now. It makes no sense to me. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Can I ask, ma'am,
Oh, please. Yes.
how many cities are using your service?
10 curbside.
Urbana,
Yes.
they're still with you
We service the city.
in Kent.
Yes, the
That's
city
the
of
only
Kent, and
two?
yes, we do not service the city of Streetsboro.
Anybody else from the audience? Name and share your concern, or?
My name is Ann White at 474 Longmere Drive. I'm a member of the Kent Environmental Council. I'm speaking as an independent, taking a position on this. We were involved in starting recycling in the early 70s. It was entirely run by volunteers. Go back to those days, and proceeds were used for improvements in the River Edge Park. Beyond the capacity of volunteers to do, operated a facility with paid staff overnight. Eventually, operations were transferred to Waste District and expanded to the. I'm somewhat reassured by the spokes from Republic that recycling landfilled, and that clearly it's in operation but I'm sure they wouldn't do anything illegal. Nobody wants to go to jail, so reassured that there is behind the fact that recyclable. I guess what my this point is if if we withdraw, it's harder and harder for the Portage County Solid Waste District to operate. They do operate a drop-off that make things that can be recycled, such as motor oil. I can't recall now whether you can take tires or not.
Once a year.
Pardon? Once a year.
they have it.
Okay. Who wants to get rid of them more often than that? Anyway, I have a concern that those businesses will go away if they no longer have the city again. So those are my concerns.
Thank you. Further?
Almost good morning, but good evening. I'm Mike Timlin. I'm one of when I came on the first of the year, our recycling center, and took a look. Been there a couple years prior, and it was a monstrosity. Today, if you go out and look at it, it's unreal. It's beautiful. The only reason I'm saying that is that if I go out to eat or I buy something, I do it in Portage County. I do it in Summit, Akron, Canton, or the competitor made a comment that they're worldwide. I appreciate that. However, you see, we have drivers that came tonight, workers that came tonight, Dawn are direct tonight, and my understanding with the was, and I could be all wrong, my understanding with the contract was is if we had an existing contract expire until the middle of the year, we're at write a bid. Now, if I'm wrong, I don't direct or oversee unless there's an issue. We have an administrator, but I just all I'm going to say about it is